Okay, committee, we are live.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Good afternoon and welcome to the County of Haliburton's Land Division Committee. My name is Liz Danielson, Chair of the committee, and I'd like to introduce you to the other members of the committee. Tammy McKelvey, Councillor at Large for Minden Hills. Pat Kennedy, Public Member for Dysart et al. Bob Snyder, Public Member representing Highlands East. And Bill Donald, Public Member representing Algonquin Highlands. We are joined by our Director of Planning, Elizabeth Parnell, and our official Land Division Secretary, Treasurer, and Planner, Adam Kozlowski. The meeting is held through remote electronic participation in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. The purpose of the hearing is to give each applicant their authorized agent the opportunity to discuss their application with the committee and respond to written submissions which may have been received. It's also an opportunity for committee members to broaden their understanding of each application by asking questions. Members of the public who are participating virtually today may also make oral submissions to the committee, whether in support or opposition of an application. We hear the applications in the same order as they were received in our office. Our planner will introduce each application and provide planning briefs. Then participants who have registered to address the committee will be admitted virtually to speak to the committee. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak to the committee. With that, we'll now proceed with the agenda. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented? Member Donald and Member Snyder.
Be it resolved that the July 8th, 2024 Land Division Committee agenda be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of June the 10th? Member Kennedy and seconded by Member McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the Land Division Committee meeting held June 10th, 2024 be approved as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. And we will move into our application for consent. The first being Byford and Breyer for hydro easements on Jacobs Lane.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll share screen briefly and walk committee through the application. Okay, and I trust everybody can see the map?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So the application, there's two applications before committee today. They are for hydro easements for a buried hydro line. And the easements are for access and periodic maintenance as required across two benefiting lots. So the the two granting properties are just north of the Irondale River, just north of County Road 503 in Minden Hills. And Conway Road comes in here, and the hydro line, there were some photos in the report package. The hydro line basically connects at a pole and it runs into the first property at 1320, where it's then buried. And then it continues across the back of 1320. It goes over a small portion of 1052 Jacobs Lane, which is the second easement. And then that hydro line services the dwelling at 1055 Jacobs Lane, which is the benefiting lot. It's my understanding that the hydro line, when I look at the 2018 air photo, you can see that there was already an excavation there for it. So the lines are already in the ground. Visually, there's really nothing to see. It's all buried. And so these easements will just provide the necessary legal access across the two properties and for maintenance in the future if required. And I'll just scroll down here. The location of the buried line and parts on the reference plan have already been prepared and deposited by the surveyor, and just requires consent from committee today. So Minden Hills has endorsed the application. There was a few conditions there. County staff have no objection, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I believe the agent, Miriam Vasny, is here as well if there's any questions. Thank you.
Do the committee have any questions for Adam? Adam, what exactly determines the path of a hydro or telephone line? Is it geography or easiest?
Very good question. I don't know. I would imagine probably good soil depth and lack of bedrock, but I imagine they would have probably done some testing on the ground there to see if they can get the line down to the depth that it needs to be. And just while I have committee, the Hydro One did provide comments late last week saying that they have no objection to these applications.
Okay, if the agent for the applicant is here, if she would like to make any comments, she can be brought in now. Good afternoon, Ms. Vosny. Are there any comments that you'd like to make on this application? You're on mute. You're on mute.
There we go. It wasn't allowing me to go off mute for a minute. Just back to the how the hydroline trench was established. Jeffrey Barber and Shirley Barber are the beneficiary lot owners for this hydro easement, and Jeff met with Hydro One on the property, and Hydro One established the route of the trench for the underground hydro line. Just so it wasn't a haphazard, you know, it looks a little bit like that, but it wasn't. It was predetermined by Hydro One.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to suggest that it was haphazard. I just, because it looks that way on paper sometimes, you wonder how they come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Do the committee members have any questions for Ms. Vosny? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this application? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the application and to grant provisional approval? Moved by member Donald, seconded by member Kennedy.
And be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the staff report related to applications for consent H2324 and H2424, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-2324, subject to the conditions of approval, and that the County of Haliburton, that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-2424, subject to the conditions of approval. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
And Chair Danielson.
Yes. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next application is by Norris for lot additions on a lot on True North Road in Dysart.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll walk committee briefly through the application, and then the agent also has a subsequent PowerPoint. Okay, and everybody can see the map?
Yes.
Yep.
So just briefly, the two applications before committee are for lot additions between two large rural waterfront parcels and a smaller waterfront residential parcel at 1341 True North Road. The granting lot for H2524 is vacant, as is H2624. It does have two large shoreline frontages on either side, but it is a vacant lot. And just scrolling down briefly, so there's a few things here I'll go over. The first application, 2524, is from the green parcel, and it's 0.47 acres, and it would be added to the benefiting lot, which has an existing cottage. So the land to be added is this hatched area. Going over to 2624, it's 1.29 acres, and it's basically the area here in yellow hatched, and it'll be added to the benefiting land. So no new lots are being created, benefiting lots being enlarged. Another part of this application, not related to the consents before committee, is that Dysart Council has approved sale of a portion of this road allowance here that's kind of a light brown. And True North Road ends a little bit west of this area. So this road allowance here is really not needed, it's surplus. And through discussion with the agent, this when this cottage is rebuilt in the future, this is actually an ideal area for a new septic system, which on a positive note will be moved much further back from the lake than the existing system. And then the other part of the application is, as a condition of the consent, Dysart Public Works has requested that the property here, which is the granting lot for H25, convey some lands to enhance the plow turnaround there. When I did my site visit, it is a pretty tight spot for a truck to turn around, and this will alleviate that issue. And again, this is a condition of consent, but it's not related to the lot additions that are before committee. So Dysart staff have endorsed the application. County staff have no objection, and we recommend approval subject to the conditions that are in the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after the agent presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I understand Lauren Arsenault is the agent and we can bring her in.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, committee members and any members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to present on these application, and thanks to staff for their summary. As was mentioned, my name is Lauren Arsenault. I'm a planner with Morgan Planning and Development. Whoops, just gonna fix my screen there. And we've prepared a planning justification report in support of 2 boundary adjustments on either side of the subject property, 1341 True North Road, on behalf of the owners Joanne Bleasdale and Ken Norris. The purpose of the proposed boundary adjustment is to sever approximately 1.3 acres from the parcel to the east and approximately half an acre from the parcel to the west to convey to that benefiting property in the middle to allow for future residential development. And thanks to staff for pulling up my presentation. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the subject property or the benefiting lands is located on the north shore of Drag Lake at the end of True North Road. Next slide, please. The property has approximately 33 meters of frontage onto Drag Lake with a total area of 1.3 acres. The property is developed with a seasonal dwelling, which is in disrepair, a shed and detached garage, and it's the owner's intent to redevelop the property in the future. The property is privately serviced, and the remainder of the property is heavily wooded with steep ridges and rock cliffs, which I can point out in the pictures on the next slide. So next slide, please. So there's a look at the existing dwelling in disrepair. As I mentioned, the owners intend to reconstruct a new dwelling in this general area. Next slide, please. Here's a photo of the rock cliff on the southeast side of the property, down close to the waterfront. That's the first picture there on the left. And then on the right, there's a steep ridge at the rear of the property. The boundary adjustment to the west will allow the property owners to access the rear of the property by foot, as currently it's inaccessible given just the steepness of that ridge there. Next slide, please. As staff mentioned, the applicants are also looking to obtain a portion of unopened road allowance at the end of True North Road. The purpose of the boundary adjustment applications in conjunction with the conveyance of the road allowance is to provide for a wider lot, better access to the rear of the property, additional space to accommodate a new septic system to service future redevelopment, and to secure access to the property from True North Road. Next slide. So here is the severance sketch. Again, I'll just go over it quickly again. The benefiting lands are in blue, parcel B, and the lands to be severed to merge with this parcel all shown with black hatching. The first application will convey approximately half an acre from parcel A to parcel B. The retained lands, which are already undersized for the RU1 zone, will be made smaller and therefore will require rezoning as a condition of condition of approval of the consent application. You can see that that boundary there matches up with the proposed portion of the road allowance the owners are looking to obtain. And as staff mentioned, this area is relatively flat where the driveway comes in, and it's a good location for a new septic in the future. As a condition of this application, Dysart staff have required conveyance of the land to the municipality for a turnaround at the end of True North Road, and Dysart Council passed a resolution supporting a land swap for the road allowance and the turnaround. And that has been recommended as a condition of approval in staff's report as well. The second application, a little bit more straightforward, looking to convey 1.3 acres from parcel C to parcel B, which will widen the lot and extend the shoreline. The retained lands are not required to be rezoned in this case because they meet a lot area and frontage requirements for the appropriate zones. So next slide. Yeah, you can actually skip this one. Basically reviewed it already. And just briefly on the policy, as that was detailed in our staff report, benefiting property zoned waterfront residential type 4L and designated waterfront residential in the municipality's official plan. Next slide, please. The lands are considered rural lands in the county's official plan. Next slide. Boundary adjustment is not considered development under the PPS as no new lot is being created. Next slide. The municipality of Dysart Council passed resolutions supporting the consent applications with recommending conditions as I previously mentioned. Next slide, please. And the proposed boundary adjustment does not offend any natural heritage policies within the county's official plan. A site evaluation report was not required given the applications do not represent any development. However, future development of the benefiting lands may need to contemplate these policies. Next slide. Morgan Planning Development is of the opinion that the applications represent good land use planning and conform to the PPS, the municipality's official plan, and the County of Haliburton's official plan. These applications will allow for the orderly development of an existing residential lot, which will respect terrain and environmental constraints where feasible. And so we would request committee approve the applications subject to conditions as outlined in staff's report. Thank you for your attention, and I'm available to answer any question.
Do the committee members have any questions for either our planner or Ms. Arsenault? Member Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was good. Just had a question on the road allowance. How will people access parcel C, for example? And just clarify that for me. Does that road allowance go anywhere, or does it actually end there? Or I just hate closing allowances.
Parcel C does not have road access right now. And so no, that's not proposed to change.
So those are waterfront access only.
Yes.
Okay.
That parcel, yeah, that parcel actually has two separate frontages. It's almost like a horseshoe shape with two separate frontages on Drag Lake.
Thank you.
Problems?
Any other questions from committee members? Member Donald?
Yes, the sketch shows an existing driveway that appears to cross private lands accessing the subject property. Is that secured by way of an existing right-of-way or mutual consent? And will that continue to be providing access to the property when it's redeveloped?
Are you referring to the waterfront lot to the west of parcel B?
I'm looking at the sketch that shows the truck turnaround. and there's two little white lines and it says existing driveway. Is that the one that services the subject property or the adjoining property?
And it services the abutting property, and I can't speak to if that's legalized access or not. That property is not owned by applicants, but through this application, there'd be no change to their frontage, since it's not, the frontage is not on the municipally maintained portion of True North.
Okay, and as I understand it, you propose to stop up and close part of the existing road, and that'll provide a site for the new septic tank and field bed.
It may
Would you
not be,
Would you continue to get access over the field bed to the subject property?
pardon me, was that last
Well,
part?
if you put the septic tank and field bed on that piece, you're going to stop up and close. I presume the access will come through the True North Road and just continue straight to the property? Will it be
Yes.
over the septic tank and field bed is my question.
Yeah, so there is an existing driveway in that area, of course. The proposed septic location, it hasn't been decided yet. It may not go exactly on that road allowance, but of course it will need to maintain a setback from the existing driveway.
Adam, did you have a comment on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just going to suggest bringing up the sketch again, just so we have a visual reference. So I'll do that right now.
Member Donald, has your question been answered?
Yes, it has to a certain extent. I have one more question for Adam.
Okay, go ahead.
Adam, when we deal with consent applications for new lots, or in this case, it's going to result in a relocated septic tank and field bed, do we follow that up as part of the county responsibility, or is it the local health unit, or who has that responsibility to follow those up?
Through you, Madam Chair. So matters of site servicing, septics, wells, things like that is the responsibility of the municipality through the building code.
Okay. So it's a lower tier. I started all
Yes.
in this case.
Yes. And just sorry, just further to that, the question from member Donald. So that driveway here that comes in, that services the abutting parcel, and that driveway connects directly to an opened year-round municipal road. So there's no right of way in that location because it's connected to public. This 20-meter wide stretch of road allowance that has a driveway on it will become part of the subject lands, and it will still have that 20 meters of frontage on a public road once that conveyance is done. And the location of the septic is to be determined. It'll be based on the topography there in the soils.
Any other questions for either Adam or Lauren? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report and grant provisional approval for both applications for consent? Member Snyder, seconded by Member McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton receive the report related to applications for consent H-2524 and H-2624, and that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-2524, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report, and that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-2624, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member McKelvey.
Yes.
Member Kennedy.
Yes.
Member Donald.
Yes.
Member Snyder.
Yes.
And Chair Danielson.
Yes. That's
Thank you.
carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, committee, and thank you to staff as well.
Okay, is there any other business to discuss? Any other business?
Or
Adam?
just for committee. So for next month, I'm anticipating I'll call it a 3-pack of of new lots over in Dysart on the south end of Haliburton Lake. I'm just waiting for some documentation to come in. Hopefully a Harcourt consent lease will come in, just waiting for clarification from the solicitor, and possibly one other application. So we should have five or six next month if everything pans out.
Okay, and we'll confirm that our next meeting is on August the 12th. Does that work for everyone? Okay, if there is nothing else to discuss, could I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by member Kennedy, seconded by member Donald.
Be it resolved that the July 8th, 2024 Land Division Committee meeting be hereby adjourned.
All in favor? Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
great afternoon.
Okay, thanks. Have a good afternoon.